It is a pleasure to be here, and actually it's also an honor. What I will be sharing is the adaptation of the material and the development of the module. ECI is actually a private limited company, and we are primarily focused on the development sector. And as somebody said yesterday in another workshop, that we make money, but by doing good. So we are like social entrepreneurs, and it's a great feeling. We are actually in the business of developing change makers, either institutional or individual change makers. And when this project came to us, we saw a great opportunity to support a change maker program. So changing minds and hearts of people around this subject was a great opportunity. Let me just, this is a little strange because I'll have to turn around then. Why was ECI selected? I think it's important to understand that. And ECI has experience of developing curriculum that has then been used for national rollout. So when the decentralization project came in, this was also ADB funded, we developed all the modules for the local government. We've developed the modules for election commission. You can see that. Recently we did one for tobacco control. We've done a very interesting life skill module that will be rolled out initially to 22,000 girls in government schools, and then eventually to many hundreds of thousands. So as an organization, we actually specialize in developing modules, particularly for a very mixed, heterogeneous target group. Maybe that is, I'm sure that is why Bearing Point approached us. We've also experience of converting these modules into other languages. If you look at it, ECI's experience in module design, actually our target audience ranges. So while we have experience of developing modules for literate audience, which is quite easy, our actual specialization comes from developing modules for non-literate or semi-literate target audience. Now, as you definitely understand, that module design requires two very specific skills. One is bringing the content in, and the other is the instructional design expertise. The content, of course, came from Kerry Clark. The content was given to us. Microfinance Opportunities gave us material that we were able to review and maybe select some important points from there. State Bank itself was very contributory and provided a lot of insight and information and content. And also, I must own here that Kerry Clark was a great inspiration and brought a lot of information to the table. But the challenge of converting that content into something that is really useful and involving, that was our challenge. And what were the challenges? First of all, we realized that cultural and visual adaptation was absolutely necessary, particularly because we realized that many of the target audience would be non-literate or semi-literate, and men and women. So one of our challenges was how to do that. Second is the other much larger challenge was that there were 8 topics to be covered, and against all persuasion, Bearing Point said that the module would be 8 hours. So 8 delivery hours, and in order to make it experiential, engaging, and then provide information of 8 pretty complicated subjects, that was another big challenge that we were facing. The third was, of course, as I mentioned, that non-literate and semi-literate audience, because in order to reach out to that audience, one has to make sure that they feel engaged and they can take the message back home, which was our next one, that there was a requirement that every person who participates in this workshop is treated as a member of a household, not as an individual. So the idea was that this person who comes to the training must take the message back home. So, must pass it on. So how would they pass it on? We had to make it easy for them to pass it on. And then from the mountain to the sea. In other words, we were covering the whole of Pakistan. So we had to keep that in mind, that we were looking at a Balochi audience, we were looking at a Sindhi audience, we were looking at KPK. So there were those cultural dimensions. And then, of course, gender sensitivity. We were looking at ensuring that both men and women felt that the module and the messages were for all of them. The module outline has already been mentioned, budgeting, savings, investment, managing debt, accessing financial services, and consumer rights and responsibilities. As you can see, that each word also has a little, each word has a little logo, so that was also deliberate, so that people could look at this little sign and say, ah, this is saving, this is budget, this is rights, right? Now, if you look at this, this is what actually evolved. Huh? So materials developed for FLP includes participant handbook, trainer's manual, and teaching and learning aids. So all of that has been developed. And okay, what is special about the module? First of all, it revolves around the family. Carrie mentioned that in considerable detail, so I'll not go into it. But suffice to say that we were looking at we wanted to ensure that the demographics were all covered. So we were looking at a man, a woman, an unmarried sister. We were looking at an older person in the household and looking at issues that such a person may face. We were looking at a daughter, we were looking at a son, and we wanted to pass messages that ensured that we were looking at gender equality as well. Another very important point was that we wanted to ensure that there were enough stories and case studies out there to not only engage the mind, but engage the heart. And unless that message goes home, right to the heart, it doesn't actually translate into action. So we wanted to make sure that the messages are internalized, and the stories and the case studies are appropriate and relevant, so that everybody says, aha, this is my story, or my brother's story, or my neighbor's story, so they must feel engaged. The other was visualization and illustration. There is a lot of visualization and illustration in this module that does not debar the module from being used by literate audience. Absolutely not. But what it does is the lowest common denominator can be reached out. And that is one of the challenges, that how can you reach out to the last person, or the person that has the, how shall I say, the most need and cannot read. So basically every word has a visual. And what that does is it helps the trainer to ensure that the message goes home and then stays there. There were lots of activities. This one is a particularly wonderful one that Carrie contributed to. And this is like having 5 tangible envelopes. And then people must learn how to use them. And what Dr. Bernard said, that real life situations, so case studies and activities do that, but also to understand that people must know that they can use something. So all the activities in the module are very hands-on, very experiential. Okay? Processes and procedures. So for example, when we were talking about using an ATM, okay, there was a human ATM and that was fun and people understood, but then they had to take home a flow chart, something that will tell them when they go back that this is activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, and that is very important. So if you see, if you look at the module or the handbook, you will see that flow charts have been made, okay? And that also eases learning. One other thing, like emphasis on local services. So whatever exists within our environment, part of the adaptation was to ensure that that has been integrated into the module. Okay. One other very important dimension was that they had to take things back to their home. So we built in small activities, because this happens over 2 days. So we built in activities so that they can take something back and then they work on it. And then whichever partner organization will work with these participants must ensure that they go back after a period of time and see. For example, this is an action learning. So making it easy, visualizing it, and then making sure that people are able to engage with it, and somebody can follow up and have feedback. I just want to kind of give you some glimpses of a before and after. Just for example, we received that text, and this is what we had to do, keeping in mind our context, keeping in mind our audience. So it's like a before and after. Yeah, next one. So this is another, sorry, go back if you, yeah, this is another one. Yeah, so ATM. So this is another flow chart. Yeah, please. Next. Rights of institutional, financial institution clients. That's another one. So this is what we received. This is what we changed. One more. This is the pre-test, the pilot. And you can see the glimpse. We made sure that very different kinds of mixed heterogeneous group was there so that we could see whether the message could go down to the lowest common denominator. Okay. So I think that's it, and I just want to finally say that thank you very much. This is an initiative long overdue, and I'm glad that it came in and that we were, thank you Bearing Point and everybody else for making us a part of this too. Thank you.